and Leicester City have 9 and have equalled Manchester United's record for the biggest ever Premier League win. It's the last act of an extraordinary story.
It would be easy to say it because of the red card after 10 minutes, but I think it's not the moment to discuss every goal and every scene and the high of the result. I think the only thing is what I say is that I take the 100% responsibility for this result today. It was a no performance from my team, and this cannot happen in this way. And I'm only say the best I've seen today in the stadium was, beside the opponent, was the crowd that was staying in the stadium, our crowd that was staying in the stadium, the guys that were staying here, how they act is more than we deserve today. And I say apologize for this no performance today.
That's the sound of Southampton head coach Ralph Hasenhüttl speaking after Friday night's record 9-0 defeat at home to Leicester City. Southampton's biggest defeat and the biggest ever away win for a side in the English top flight. To discuss that and a little bit more surrounding the circumstances of that loss for Southampton, I'm joined on the line by Simon Peach, the chief football writer for PA. Simon, you're very welcome to the show. Firstly, you were at the Etihad last night, I know, to watch the Carabao Cup tie between Manchester City and Southampton, a 3-1 win for the holders last night. How had things improved, if any, and what was the general feeling around the club last night?
Well, it had improved. They managed to cut the goal tally down by a third and managed to score, so that's the start. In my role as a journalist, I tend to cover Man United, so I don't often get a chance to see Southampton live, which is actually a good thing at the moment. But I decided to go last night. I actually bought the ticket on the Monday, so sat in the away end. And I was amazed how many fans turned up and how they stuck with the team, given the fact that they know they've got Man City again coming up at the weekend and things weren't going particularly well from the start. They were on the back foot. But the Southampton players showed spirit, they showed fight, they showed a bit of tactical discipline, which I think was the key thing that was missing the other night. And although it was a 3-1 loss, there was shoots of some kind of positives. Let's just hope that they can build on it when they return to the Etihad Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Yeah,
it was a case of basically ball up and hope for the best, I think, in the first half, especially that they conceded 2 goals. They didn't manage a shot on target, I don't think, until just past the hour mark. But there's a definite sense of, we're not going to concede, we're not going to be pummeled in the same way we were on Friday night, and at least that, as you say, is a step up.
Yeah, Shane Long, who I like in attack with someone else, wasn't in attack with anyone else. So he was chasing blind alleys in the first half, working as hard as he could, but the balls naturally kept coming back. But Saints stuck with a back 5 with Højbjerg, who's the captain, and a central midfielder playing at left wing back with Brian Bertrand suspended after that red card against Leicester. So it was a bit of I think what might have been overlooked by some people is that the fact that was, as much as it was a City scratch side, it was a largely reserve side for Southampton as well. So it was a good chance to get rid of all the negative energy. I was quite impressed by the way the club handled it in terms of making sure that the wages from Friday night went to the Saints Foundation, the charitable arm of the club, and the players just kept their heads down. They didn't try and make excuses. The club did try and make excuses. They just, in a way, they took it on the chin. They didn't really have any other choice, but they've regrouped, and it's how they kick on now.
Yeah, that's the big question, and I guess a lot of that is founded in how the club is structured at the moment, because Southampton, from the outside looking in, appear to be one of the better structured sides, especially among the kind of middle rank of Premier League teams, you can say, going back 3, 4, 5 years, whereas now they've suffered a succession of key departures in key roles at boardroom level, or at least between boardroom level and management, that has seen Hasenhüttl unfortunately become somewhat isolated at the club. That's the impression that I get anyway.
Yeah, there's a few things. With Southampton, a club like Southampton, I'm as guilty as anyone working in the media myself. They become a story when things go bad or incredibly well. The rest of the time, they're just left to their own devices, to be quite honest. For people that haven't been looking, this has been happening for 3 or 4 years since Ronald Koeman left. The signings that have been made have been mostly disastrous. all that Virgil van Dijk money, the the world record fee for a defender is gone on players like Guido Carrillo, who after 3 months the club gave up on, and he was club record signing, remains, I think it's about 20 odd million. Terrible signings made. Players leaving, players becoming unhappy, players becoming disenfranchised with the club that they joined being the model Premier League mid-sized club. Now no longer that. Yes, there have been some key departures. Personally, I don't feel many of those departures are particularly bad for the club. I don't think they were doing their job particularly well in the first place in a number of those cases, but at the same time, they do need replacing. At the moment, there is a structural void, and then it goes down to the Gao family. The Gao family are a very rich Chinese family that bought 80% of the club a year or so ago, maybe even longer. Time flies when you're losing 9-0. But they haven't shown any leadership so far, in my humble opinion. They don't speak publicly, which is fine. Roman Abramovich doesn't speak publicly, and that's just gone fine. But the difference is there's no structure, and they want it to be self-sustaining from the looks of things, which is fine. But to be self-sustaining, you need to be buying low and selling high, rather than buying at a medium level and then losing the money. So they need to refine the soul of the club. But I don't think it's as bad as it's been painted out in some quarters, although that's inevitable after a 9-0 loss.
What kind of sense of hope do you have from it then?
Well, the players aren't that bad. And Hasenhüttl, look, he may well feel that there's a gap above him right now, but he came into the job when Mark Hughes was leading the side to the Championship. It was another year facing the drop. This didn't come as a surprise to him. There's been a lot of discussion about how his assistant manager leaving in the summer has affected things. That is a valid question. But Hasenhüttl, as an astute manager, we've seen that in his reigns elsewhere, so it can't be fully put on him. And the players are good players. You've got numerous internationals in there. But the problem with Southampton sometimes is that they lose their way, and it doesn't, as is a key word for everyone, for every Premier League side now, there doesn't seem to be the same type of leaders anymore.
I mean, a lot was pointed towards Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, I guess is one of the better performers in the side in the last couple of seasons, being their captain at just 24. Along with that, you looked on Friday night and there didn't seem to be anybody. I hate going in for the John Terry fist-pumping, rallying the troops kind of stuff to a degree, but there didn't seem to be anybody on the pitch to get a hold of things and say, listen, lads, we actually need to just sit in here and keep things tight for 10 to 15, don't concede again within that period, and then we'll see where we go from there. Everything seemed to snowball on Friday night, and that seemed indicative of that lack of leadership on the pitch, at least from them.
Yeah, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, the problem with him is he is the one that always fronts up, so the fans are kind of, while respecting him, are tired of the same voice putting their head on the chopping block when it comes to fronting up when a bad result happens or a bad performance. Too few other people. Ryan Bertrand was the captain of this club. He's not anymore, and there's that. Just because you're not captain doesn't mean you can't show leadership. Of course, he was sent off the other day, but he's been involved in plenty of games where things have gone awry, and there hasn't been that person grabbing things. Defensively, I think is where a lot of the issues lie, both in terms of the leadership and the quality. Southampton have been blessed since returning to the Premier League with some outstanding players, from Jose Font, who came up with them and is obviously now a Euro 2016 winner, playing in the Champions League with Lille. You had Toby Alderweireld, you had Virgil van Dijk, and there isn't that same quality now. So Hasenhüttl needs to find a way of getting them to play together. It does seem like he's going for we certainly did last night with the Gareth Southgate approach of, if I don't have two quality centre-backs, then I'll put in three half-decent ones and try and shore it up. So I don't think that's a bad tactic, but they just need to get through the next game in the Etihad Stadium and then really kick on, because they haven't won at home this season. The only point they've got is at some areas against Man United, which probably says as much about Man United as it does about Southampton.
I mean, you mentioned the likes of Alderweireld, you mentioned the likes of Van Dijk and the other players that came up with them from the Championship, hung around for a couple of seasons as well. The other thing that Southampton were notorious for was producing their own. I mean, James Ward-Prowse is one of those who's still there, and they've had a conveyor belt of really, really good young players come through the squad that seems to have slowed down considerably over the past, I guess, probably 18 months to 2 years in particular. From our perspective, seeing Michael Obafemi come through has been a boon, but beyond that, it's hard to see where the others have come from.
Yeah, obviously, in all academy structures, there's peaks and troughs. This does seem to be. Actually, a lot of academy players have got minutes. They just haven't managed to stay in the side since Hasenhüttl has arrived. From Callum Slattery to Kane Ramsey, lots of people that have been given a chance and have gone away and they're still around the club but aren't in the first team reckoning right now. Jake Vokins, who's a highly rated defender, made his debut last night towards the end. Obviously, you're not going to throw him in from the start. For the fear of the damage it could cause him long term. But yeah, you're right. The academy structure isn't producing the players it once was, but I don't think that's a particular negative about the club. I just think that's just how it goes. Some years you'll get Gareth Bale, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I mean, there was one year where Saints had Luke Shaw, Callum Chambers, James Ward-Prowse, Matt Targett, who was sold to Aston Villa in the summer for around 17 million. You get that crop, but then you might have a fallow period for a few years. So, of all the things that are going wrong at Southampton right now, I'm hopeful that the academy isn't one of them.
From a plus point, I guess, it was heartening to see that there was a lot of talk on Friday night of, I don't see how Ralph Hasenhüttl can survive this. I don't see how he can continue on with the squad. The hierarchy seemed to be pretty adamant that he will maintain leadership of that squad, that he will take them through to January, would seem. And it's a case of how they use January, how they use that transfer window, if he's able to use it, I guess, as well, to move on and secure their safety this season. Yeah,
the club at the moment, if you're going to be behind a manager after a 9-0 home loss, then you'd think he's got a bit of time. He's a good manager. He hasn't got the tools to make the team play in the way he wants to do. And again, when I was speaking earlier about clubs that fly under the radar unless things are going spectacularly wrong or really well, is that they don't notice the issues. And the main issues at Southampton have been these dreadful signings, which have been on the books but have needed to be replaced. So you've got 5-6 players out on loan. Fraser Forster, the highest paid employee in Southampton Football Club's history, still got 2.5 years left on loan at Celtic, where Elyounoussi also is, who signed for around 15 million last year. Guido Correa, the club record signings out on loan just to get him off the books. Wesley Hoot, who's had a dreadful time since arriving from Southampton as a Holland international, has now played for Antwerp on loan. Saints are having to pick up a lot of these wages, and they needed to sell as much as they could as well, because the club are trying to be sustainable, and the club therefore couldn't make the signs they did. They brought in Kevin Danzo right at the end on loan, a hefty loan fee, but it was a roll of the dice. Moussa Djenepo looks like their first good, what you'd call a Southampton signing, probably since Ronald Koeman's era, but he's injured at the moment. And Shea Adams, the club will be hoping comes good. He was fantastic for Birmingham in the Championship, has yet to do it. So they do need to make signings. Centre-back has been an area they need to make signings for a long time, but I don't know whether it's a blind spot or, as I mentioned, the financial, not issues, but the financial realities of a club like Southampton being running the way they are.
Do we know if the players are still good with Hasenhüttl?
Well, if they're not, that says a lot about them as well, because they've not been happy with Pellegrino, with Hughes, with Puel, and sometimes they need to point the mirror on themselves. It's
that run of fixtures, I guess, over the next while, beyond the 2 City games, the one that we've just had last night, and then, of course, to come in the league this Saturday. That will, I guess, be the acid test of what they're made of, because they are against those teams that are around them, or that are going to be around them in that scrap against relegation towards March and April.
And it has been forgotten a bit how Southampton haven't had an awful season up until the Leicester game. There's been some bad days at the office, as any mid-table side has, but they've not been dreadful. They just seem to be this is the time where Southampton will get a kicking, and quite rightfully so. I'm hopeful that things will turn around, but what I think is key is that they need to get that win at home. I believe it's something like 15 Premier League wins out of 62 home games. It's just not on. The fans pay a lot of money to go, and they're not getting anything and any hope, because the kind of trade-off being a Southampton fan is that, yes, your best players will leave, but at least you get to see some entertaining football for a while. And they're not even getting that at the moment, and they're kind of at a loss. So hopefully there's that home win that can give them a shot in the arm and keep them forward. Maybe even an away win on Saturday, but that looks a lot.
That'd be very hopeful. But I guess it is in the same sense that the 9-0 against Leicester shines a light on all of the bad aspects of the club. As soon as you get that home win and get over the hump of that will, crack open another door that can hopefully lead towards a few more points being garnered along the way. Yeah,
and the table's quite tight. I mean, with 2 wins, you can jump up a hell of a long way. So I don't think all is lost at Southampton, and I think the response yesterday said a lot about the character of the group, if not the quality, because against, as much as Man City were playing a reserve defence, they also had Aguero and Jesus leading the line, flanked by Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez, so it wasn't a bad attacking quartet. So it's an interesting time to be associated with Southampton, to be a Southampton fan, and obviously interesting from the outside, because no one's ever seen anything like this in the modern era, a 9-0 defeat for a top flight side. So it's big questions, and hopefully they continue to answer them, just for the sanity of the good people that do work at the club.
Sure thing. Simon Peach, Chief Football Writer with PA, thanks so much for speaking to us this evening.
No worries.